I've always loved the sound of pouring rain. I know I'm not alone. Those ambient rain videos on YouTube rack up millions of views each. But when I say love, I mean love. Whether I'm running, reading a book on a lazy Saturday afternoon, or lounging in our beachfront Airbnb watching the downpour while everyone else complains, the soft, rhythmic pattern of rain can turn any day into a great one. Or, rather, it could. That was before I heard about the rain chasers. If you've been on the internet lately, you've likely seen countless videos and thumbnails about aliens, paranormal activity, and even demon encounters. Most are fake. Pointless drivel designed to rack up clicks and impressions. But if you start watching, the algorithm learns. It tailors content to your tastes. Watch enough, and you might stumble upon the other stuff. The things that feel real. That's how I found out. It started during my weekly plunge into the world of OOBs, or out-of-body experiences. I'd always been fascinated by the topic. If the CIA spent that much money researching remote viewing and OOBs, there must be something to it, right? That's what I thought. So I dug through various sources, watched interview after interview, examined debunks and rebuttals. By the end, I was probably as knowledgeable as those all-knowing agents themselves. After a while, like any good researcher, I needed to experience it myself. I selected my best headphones, bought some cheap sleep masks from Amazon, and waited for the right day. It arrived in the dead of November. Pouring rain drowned out any disturbances, and the cold numbed my fingers and toes, curbing the inevitable edge to fidget during the session. I pulled up the most promising YouTube video I could find. 3.2 million views, surely a good sign, and lay on my back, waiting. At first, nothing happened. I listened to the soft thumping and gentle humming of the binaural audio I'd chosen, trying to count my breaths instead of thinking about Jenna from accounting. Resisting those thoughts proved much harder than I'd hoped, but every so often I found myself sinking as the tutorials had instructed. I waited completely still for what felt like hours before finally deciding to give up. But as I tried to lift my arms to remove the headphones, I felt a strange sensation. My hands weren't moving. Not really. But it felt as if they had shifted in the room's ambient cold and airflow. I turned my head down to look at them, and that's when it happened. I heard an overwhelming rush of water, like being pulled beneath an ocean tide, and felt myself spinning and floating like a balloon until I bumped against the popcorn ceiling. I couldn't see anything, but what I lacked in sight, I made up for 1,000-fold in physical sensation. Electricity buzzed all around me, and through it I could make out my own body feet below wherever I was. A wave of excitement washed over me. I flew around my room like a banshee out of hell, sensing each carpet fiber, each grain of popcorn. This new sense, whatever it was becoming easier to navigate. It was as if my mind was reinterpreting these signals into something both familiar and extraordinary. I was in heaven. But now I wanted to see how far I could go. I crept out of my room, spying on Tubbs, my wary cat, who hissed in recognition. Then I floated down the stairs and into the living room. So far, so good. I felt the tether to my body widen, not like a string being pulled taut, but like chewing gum, expanding to the extent of my travel. I could feel waves and currents exuding from my PlayStation, vibrations pulsing from the fridge, and through the kitchen window, the familiar patter of evening rain. The soft pitter-patter shrank and grew as I fluttered around my floor plan, and in that moment, I yearned to feel the rain against this new energy I had become. I found the window again and crept toward it, nervously breaching the safety and comfort within the glass. That feeling was euphoric. The way the rain massaged my essence, like a million little fingertips brushing against me from every direction at once. I basked in the sensation, feeling my own buzzing grow into an unending thrill. I could get used to this. I zipped in every direction, twirling and shimmying against the falling drops like a newborn gosling, ecstatic to be alive. But then I met another. As I pulsed in harmony with the vibrations of the universe, I suddenly felt an overwhelming dread, like a pair of brutal headlights piercing the dark, energetic cosmos. It zoomed past me as if it hadn't noticed on its interstellar journey. But then it turned around. It fixed me with that great spotlight of negative sensation, and my soul blackened in response. I couldn't tell what it looked like. I couldn't imagine what it was. But in that moment, it felt like an infinite swarm of black, sharp tendrils reaching out to pierce and drain the life from me in an instant. I didn't wait for introductions. I fled. I raced down the avenue I'd traveled, weaving between trees and thorny bushes toward my kitchen window. I could feel it catching up, but I had no choice. I tried to tighten my grip, but my body had gone numb from the distance I'd covered. As I reached the covered porch outside my window, a painful sting pierced what felt like my liver. My essence grew cold, and though I pulled against the barb, I was no match for the thing's strength. More tendrils caught up with me, stabbing like tiny knives into my core. I shook in agony and fear, beginning to accept my fate. My breathing grew loud and labored. I sensed my body losing all connection with me. And then the rain stopped. I hadn't noticed its gentle fade into nothing, but as the last drops fell, I felt the presence dying too. My aura remained pierced, but the talons were all but vanquished. Seizing this chance, I floated back into my house, up the stairs, and hurled myself into my body with all my might. I took a deep breath and let out a nasty, full-bodied cough. Then I sat up in bed and prayed for protection from every god I knew. I was sick for the next week. After that experience, I never wanted to attempt out-of-body experiences, astral projection, or even meditation again. Even sleep became a terrifying chore. I would stay awake until sunrise, hoping exhaustion would plunge me past consciousness straight into oblivion. I researched what had happened to me, scouring online clues in the dark astral projection forums that had gotten me into this mess. But the internet was flooded with hippy-dippy garbage about Reiki and energy healing. Nothing useful. That is, until I received a message from a cryptic user whose IP traced back to Uzbekistan. "Hey there," he typed. "I've seen you around on these forums, looking for information about the rain chasers." "The what?" "Oh, that's just what we call them. I know you understand what I mean, though. Those nasty creatures that float around in the dark and in the rain. I'm not quite sure what they are, but I do know one thing. They don't appreciate being noticed. They try their best to avoid our glances, hiding in attics, basements, old caves, even the shadows beneath the leaves on tall willow trees. You can never see them, not really. I don't think they even exist in our world. But there's something about the rain, maybe the vibrations, or the gaps it creates within the static. Something about it reveals them to those of us who can see." "How can they tell they're being watched?" "Oh, they can tell. You can tell, can't you? Ever get that feeling when someone's eyeing you wrong on the subway? We pretend it's not there, but it is. We all know when we're being watched. I guess they're similar to us in that way. So, they're not just other people, other out-of-bodies? There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio." And just like that, he was gone. No replies, no logins since. I searched for his username everywhere, but like the chaser, he had vanished. I replayed the stranger's words over and over in my head. Rain chasers. The name sounded like a bad superhero group from an old 90s cartoon. But he was right. I knew exactly what he meant. Yet, with that name, he'd also given me knowledge I shouldn't have. As I looked up from my laptop screen into the dark bedroom at 3 a.m, a subtle panic rose in my throat. They weren't just out there, confined to the rain. My eyes darted from one dark corner to another. Was that one of them? Or just my old floor lamp? Those things could be anywhere, and I had no idea how to avoid them. I felt a strange urge, a subtle shift in vibration in the corner of my vision, and I didn't wait for answers. I shot out of bed and turned on every light in the house. Nowhere felt safe. But according to the strange man, these things disliked the light. That night, I slept naked in the kitchen, under the comforting buzz of the fluorescent light overhead. Rain became torture to me. I'd shut every window in the house and lock myself in the basement, stuffing towels under the door to block out the sounds. Even showers were out of the question now. I must have looked absolutely crazy. People at work started to get worried. I wasn't turning in my assignments on time anymore, and stopped showing up to the office altogether. I even missed Jenna's birthday party. Memos turned into warnings, which became strongly worded emails demanding my return. I should have been terrified, but there was no way I could afford to lose my job. So after one more weekend spent ruining my choices in my house, I finally decided to brave the great outdoors once more. I'd driven about 10 miles when things started getting strange. Weird sounds crackled from the radio, odd pulses throbbed from the engine, and after one too many misfires, the car ground to a halt. I checked my cell phone, but it had no service. I lived out in the country, surrounded by nature. What had begun as a beautiful escape from the city had turned into a trap among its wild inhabitants. I got out of the car and checked the engine. No smoke, no fire, all fluids topped off. I figured it must be the battery, or maybe a bad alternator. Either way, I wasn't getting help here, so I started walking. The Douglas firs around me towered skyward, their ancient trunks and branches swaying gently in the morning wind. I watched them dance as I trudged up the long hill toward the nearest intersection. Only 3 miles to go. My boots squished in the muddy spots dotting the old dirt road, untouched by county maintenance for years. The journey afforded me time to think, and my mind fixated on the chasers. With every step, my heart beat faster as my mind spiraled into panic and rumination. The trees looked different now, their needles no longer dancing in the wind, but waving ominously, as if they could hear my thoughts. Subtle movements flickered in the gaps between branches, amid the needles and leaves on the ground. Patterns emerged wherever I looked. Small tunnels formed in the foliage, like flying snakes slithering out to peek at me from the tree's cover. My strides lengthened, my pace quickened. As my boots kicked up mud onto the back of my trousers and shirt, I started to hear a subtle hissing. I wanted to run, but had no idea where to go. The road ahead was miles away, and my car showed no signs of immaculate recovery anytime soon. Still, it offered me some shelter, even if only a placebo. Maybe that was all I needed. I turned on my heels and headed back the way I'd come. That's when the rain started. I felt the first drop of water bounce off my nose, roll down my cheek, and settle in the small hairs above my upper lip. My stomach dropped, and my vision narrowed to a black tunnel extending from my face to the driver's door of my car. The trees shivered in sick anticipation, watching as I pounded across the loose ground, running back along the road. The rain fell harder and faster now, soaking my shirt with the poison pouring from the sky. I sensed them approaching, surrounding me. Not just one this time, but tens, hundreds of those things gaining on me. I hadn't looked at them that day, not directly, but maybe that didn't matter anymore. Maybe they didn't like others knowing they existed, or perhaps noticing them had become unavoidable since that day, and merely feeling their presence was enough to lure them. The car was only meters away when I felt a tendril wrap around my ankle. I fell face first into the mud as it coiled around me. It was weaker now. My physical body offered protection, and it lacked the penetrative force it had had in my spectral state. But that didn't stop the things from trying to drain me. They lashed at my arms and legs, wrapping toward my throat as I batted them away. I still couldn't see them clearly, but the rain outlined their absence. After some defensive swings and failed attempts to rise to my knees, I gripped a tendril from the air and swung it around. It landed nearby. The others really didn't like that. I jumped to my feet and bolted the last dozen yards, ripping open the car door and locking myself inside. The car rocked left and right as the monsters tried to flip it over. I turned the ignition. Once, nothing. Twice, nothing. On the third try, I heard the quietest purr imaginable. Somehow, the old rust bucket sprang to life just when I needed it most, immaculate recovery notwithstanding. I slammed my foot on the gas, feeling the tires dig into the mud before lurching forward. Phantom bodies slammed against the windshield, splintering it into an opaque mess. Still, I drove full speed ahead, rattling over holes and divots on the old dirt road. Those things were behind me now, and up ahead, a glimmer of sunlight broke through the clouds. As I gripped the steering wheel tighter, a strange sensation prickled up my left hand. A cold, withered tendril crept up my arm and onto my shoulder as I struggled to bat it away while keeping the car on the road. It wrapped its disgusting body around my neck, its spiny grip tightening. I pulled desperately as my foot stayed locked on the accelerator, but the darkness swept over me more quickly this time. Closing my eyes, I offered one last apology to God and my mother. I never meant for things to turn out this way.
3 times,
the nurse repeated.
You rolled over 3 times after hitting that semi. God knows how you came out of that alive.
I opened my eyes to the harsh fluorescent lighting beating down from the hospital ceiling.
You suffered major contusions to your neck and extremities, a mild concussion, all things considered, and 2 fractured ribs. Mr. Holloway, I wouldn't...
I looked down at my broken body. Bandages covered every spot I could see. My legs hung in white straps above the foot of the bed. But my arms, I couldn't tell at first. Straining against the head and neck restraints sent sharp pains down my spine. But I needed to see. Where I should have seen a left hand peeking out from under the bandages, there was nothing. My arm had been severed at the elbow. No gore, no viscera, just sterile white cloth and nothing.
You suffered severe trauma, Mr. Holloway. It's a miracle you survived at all. Your arm experienced complete tissue death after your seatbelt wrapped around it several times, strangling it. We have a grief counselor on staff if you'd like to speak to someone. I still felt it, as if my spirit remained intact. My fingertips rubbed against the base of my palm. An old familiar itch prickled beneath the nail of my ring finger. My knuckles begged to be cracked after the long journey. And I felt the writhing and coiling of that God-forsaken worm as it wrapped around me. I live in Arizona now. It rains 3 inches a year here. There are no trees around me, and when I take my weekly bath, I use a system of strings to start and stop the faucet from another room. It's been a few years since the accident. They called it stress-induced psychosis. I tried telling the shrinks the truth about what happened. That was a mistake. But it did get me on disability, so that was a plus. I've learned to type with one hand. I could probably drive one-handed too, but nobody wants to give a license to the guy who rammed his sedan headfirst into a trailer. Sometimes an online video or intriguing sketch reminds me of leaving my body for those fleeting moments. I recall the pleasure I felt, the sensation of experiencing something brand new again. But pleasure is fleeting. Pain is forever.
Hey guys, it's Malice here. I really appreciate you sticking around until the end of the story. I'm a one-man operation and trying my best to grow, so if you like what you just heard, please leave me a like. Subscribe if you want to hear more, and please send me any reading requests you might have. I'm always struggling to find new content. Thanks again, and stay scared.